Hello everyone and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. On today's episode we're going to make this painting of this lovely little yellow building out in the middle of a mountain scene. It's a really cool image, I think. I love the way this painting turned out. I'm going to show you the original stock image that I used and we're going to turn it into a painting. I'm going to show you every step along the way. I'm not going to leave anything out. You're going to see it from start to finish and hopefully you'll pick up a lot of good tips and tricks. And this video will really help you. So without any further ado, let's get started. But let me just tell you before we start, I used Photoshop. I used Topaz Studio 2, and I also used Topaz Restyle in this image, and some dodging and burning. So let's get started. All right, so here is the image we're going to try to make today. I'm sure this image won't come out quite the same, but we'll do the best we can. I went ahead and duplicated this background layer, and I put it right here. So let me go ahead and turn this on. The first thing we want to do is take this into Topaz Studio 2. So we'll come up to Filter, go to Topaz Studio 2, we'll launch it, and we'll get right into Topaz Studio 2. The first thing we're going to do is run an impression filter on it. So we'll just come to Add Filter, come down to Impression. I gave myself some notes here so I could move along quickly. So the brush I used was Type 08, which is this guy right here. And the next thing I like to do is always come down to Texture, open up Texture, and go to Original. All right, very important so we don't see all those white lines of the canvas and things in the background. And let's see here. I think I used the medium brush. I don't have that in my notes. I used the brush size of 50. Paint volume, I had it up to like around 36. Somewhere in there. That works. Stroke width. And I played with all these different settings, and these are the ones that I ended up using. Okay, so stroke width was around a 61. Somewhere in there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but close. The length was like a -17. So I just shortened up the length just a little bit. -18 works. The spill, I had it a 40, like a +40. So right around there, that works. Okay. And that was all I did at this point. And really what I was looking at was the foreground here at this point. And not the background. So I'm going to do something totally different to the background. But the foreground was what I liked. I liked the way things looked up here and on the grasses here and on the building itself. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and did I do anything else? Original background. Okay, no, so we're just going to go ahead and accept that, and that'll bring us right back into Photoshop. Well, one thing I see I forgot to do was honor my rule, and that is always duplicate the background layer. So I'm going to put a black layer mask on here, but that's going to mess me up. And I'll go ahead and do it, and you'll see what I mean here. So I'm going to Option or Alt-click this layer mask icon here, put a black layer mask on here, and as you can see, I'm seeing my original painting underneath it. What I needed to do was duplicate this background layer twice. I didn't do that, so I can work non-destructively. So let me go ahead to the background layer, Command or Control J to duplicate it. And my little, well, I was going to use my little shortcut, but actually I'm not. I'm just going to drag this up under here. Okay, now we got it. Okay, so now the hide all layer mask is hiding what I've just done here. Okay, because we were seeing the painting layer under there. So, well, I leave these mistakes in so you can see, because I'm sure you'll make them too. So not to get upset over, we can fix these things. All right, so we're going to the layer mask. Make sure you have the layer mask selected. Get yourself a white paintbrush. B is a shortcut for the paintbrush. I'm just using a soft, regular paintbrush here. And want to make sure I'm painting with white paint, so I'm going to type the X key, which will switch my foreground to background colors here. And I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger here. And right now the opacity is at 10%. I'm just going to go ahead and bump this opacity up to 100%. So I'm just going to type the 0 key. That's a shortcut to bring that opacity up to 100%. And I'm just going to paint in the effect I just did on the foreground. So I'm going to take care of the background later with a different adjustment here. But for now, I just want to get in this foreground section here. Now we could have just lassoed this and did the whole thing without painting it as well. But let's just go ahead and paint it in here. Maybe I'll show you what I mean by the lasso tool here in a second. Let me just paint this building in here. I like what this effect did to this building here. Nice, simplified it nicely, the impression effect here. I'm just going to paint around the edges here, and then we'll take a look at our layer mask. All right, just get on the edges here, like so. Make sure I have all these edges in nicely. Now let's option click our layer mask. This way we can actually see the layer mask. So I'm going to go ahead and get the lasso tool L and just kind of paint around these areas like so. And now I'm just going to do a shift delete. And that brings up our fill dialog box. I'm going to fill it with white, the contents. Now if you click on the drop down here, you can see you have all these different options here, but I'm just going to fill it with white, so click OK. Then Command D or Control D to deselect. And now let's option click the layer mask. And now we filled that in. So we don't have to sit there and paint the whole thing in. The next thing we're going to do is pull this all together, stamp it up to the layer above the background copy 2. So that's a Shift, Option, Command, or Control E. Pull that all together. I'm not going to duplicate this because I don't really have to at this point. So what we're going to do is come up to Filter. We're going back to Topaz Studio 2. So we're going to launch Topaz Studio 2, and then we're going to add 2 filters to this image in Topaz Studio 2. And that would be the abstraction and another impression filter. And we're only working on the mountains in the sky here next. So we're going to add filter, come down to abstraction. We're not going too crazy here. We're going to bump up the simplify size to about a 30. Okay. And then we're going to take the detail up to about a 62. And then, okay. And so we're not worried about the foreground. We're just looking at the background here. And then we're going to impression. So we'll add the filter, add the impression filter. And I didn't do too much here. I used type 07, which is this circle type brush here. And went down to the texture. And I always do this pretty much all the time. Sometimes I don't, but I generally go and take the background type and move it to original. Gets rid of all the canvas white in the background. And then the layer opacity I had at about, let's see, around 73%, somewhere in there. And that was all I did. I didn't touch any of the other adjustments here because I really like the way this looked back here. And I thought it gave me a nice look for the overall painting. Now, again, the foreground, we're not going to touch it. And then all we need to do is click Accept and come right back into Photoshop. Now, we're going to save ourselves some time. So I'm going to option click this layer mask here on background copy 2. Hold the option key down and drag it up to layer 5. Now, it's the opposite of what I want because I want the effect to be on the mountain. So all I need to do is click on the layer mask and do a Command or Control I to invert the layer mask. And look, we fixed it. We got the effect on our mountain back here. And you could zoom into your image and look around and see how the transitions are between the two effects. And I think things are looking pretty good. So that's always a good thing to do. Now, what I don't like is I don't like what's happening up here on the mountain up here. So what I'm going to do is remove it from there. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the layer mask here. Type B for the brush tool. Make my brush a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to make sure I'm painting with black paint. Right now I'm with white paint. So type the X key. And let's just paint that effect off of up here. Because I just like the way the little misty thing was happening up in here, and I think that looks good. And that's really all I want to do right there, is just get rid of that effect right up in there. Now we want to pull this all together and stamp it to the layer above layer 5. So it's a Shift, Option Command E. And then we're going to go back to Topaz Studio 2. Again, my favorite little toy box for creativity filter, Topaz Studio 2. This time we're going to add some AI remix to the scene here. And what I did here was add filter, AI remix, and I used colored marker. I just got to find it. I guess I could search here. Colored. COLORED. Marker. MARKER. Well, there it is, colored marker. Who would have thought I would have used that one, huh? Well, let's see what I did here. Colored marker. I did a lot of experimentation. Colored marker. Soft light blend mode. And, yep, soft light blend mode. I took the saturation to 0. So I wanted no saturation. I just like the effect I was getting back in here. And then I pulled the opacity back to about 70%. Somewhere right around there. And I kind of liked the look. And I didn't like what was happening up in here. But I liked what was happening in this section right in here. And I think that's all I did. So now we'll go ahead and click Accept. And we'll bring that right back into Photoshop. All we need to do now is take this mask, steal it, and drag it up here. So that, hold the Option key down, click on the mask on layer 5, and drag it up. And voila, we're done. So we have that nice effect in here. And I don't think did I adjust the opacity here? No, I just left it full strength there. I like the way that looked. Now, if that was too strong, I could play with this opacity. Let's just pull this back a little bit. Okay. You know, it reduces some of the contrast in there, but I might just pull it back just a little bit, maybe to around 80%. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to leave it right there. All right, the next step is we want to pull this all together. So that's Shift, Option, Command, or Control E. That pulls that all together. Then we want to go into another Topaz filter. Let's come up to Filter under Topaz Labs and get one of my favorites. It's an oldie but a goodie, Topaz Restyle. And I used a style in here called Dark White Horses. And I think this is it right here. The way I got that was I went into the nature category. I clicked on the nature category and clicked this preset list here. And here's all the different restyle presets. And I just went through and I found Dark White Horses. But I favorited it, so I can click right here in this little favorite icon here and find Dark White Horses, which will be this guy right here. I'll click it. So remember, when you get a restyle you like, you can put it in one of your favorite, and put it actually in the favorites folder, and you can get it quicker. I didn't do anything to it. I just liked the way it looked here because I thought, you know what, this is really nice. I'll selectively add color back just to certain parts of the image, and I thought that will be nice. So we're just going to go ahead and leave everything the way it is and click OK. That'll bring us right back into Photoshop. And then what we're going to do is put a white layer mask on it. So just come down to the layer mask icon and give that a click. And now we're going to start selectively painting back in color. Make sure you have your brush tool selected. If you don't, just type the letter B key and that gets your brush tool. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger here. I want to be painting with black paint because I'm going to white reveal all layer masks. So I'm going to start with the barn, it's the house actually, and I'm just going to start to paint this color in at 100% full strength here. If you go outside the edges, you can go ahead and clean that up, no problem. Maybe I'll just leave the roof the way it is. Okay, so I just like the way the color pops on the building here. And take your time and do it right. If you overpaint, just type the X key and that'll get you black paint. And you can just erase around it where you don't want it to be. And you're good to go. Okay, so now I'm going to reduce the opacity of my brush and make sure I'm painting with black paint. So type the X key. And what I'm going to do is make my brush a little bit bigger here. I just want to add some color, just a little bit of color up in here. I'm going to go down to like 20% and just add a little bit of color in this section right in here. That's all, just a little bit of it. And then I want to come across the grasses here and paint some color into the grass. I should paint that little building right there too. Keeping off the foreground, I like the way the foreground looks, so I'm not going to mess with that too much. I just want to see how much grass here, how much color I want in the grass here. So that's like 20%, and let me go 10%. Now I'm just going to type the 1 key. Just put a little bit of extra color right around the edges here. Actually, over all this grass, get a little bit more color in there. Paint on this building a little bit here. And right up in here a little bit. Maybe I don't want it on this little section right here, so I'll type the X key and make my brush a little smaller. And just paint that back off of there, right in there. Okay, something like that. And I think that's looking pretty cool. And maybe do I want a little bit of color in this hill back here? I'm still at 10%, and right now I'm painting with white. So I'm going to type the X key, and I might just add a little bit of color, 10% back in here. Just to give it a little bit, not much, just a little bit of color right in here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so right there. So here's the before and here's the after. So I'm liking it. I like this selective color look. I like this nice bright yellow building popping out here. And that's looking really good. Now we're almost done with this. All we have to do now is pull this all together, Shift Option Command E. And we're going to add a texture layer. So let's just come up to Filter and Topaz Studio 2, launch that. And I'll refer to my notes and see what I did next. Okay, we're going to go to Add Filter, come down to Texture. I'm just looking for a texture for the house here, okay? So I know I use the soft light blend mode, so let's change the blend mode to soft light. I'm going to take the opacity up full way. And I use the texture called Bronze Glitter. So let me go to the search dialog here and type in bronze, B-R-O-N-Z-E, G-L-I-T-T-E-R. Where are you, Bronze Glitter? Right here. So that's the one I used. And I just liked what it was doing in the building here. So that's all I'm really concerned with. And I left it at full strength. So I'm just going to go ahead and accept that. And that brings us back into Photoshop. And let's put a hide all layer mask. That's Option click the layer mask down here. Hides it. We're going to get a brush. And I'm going to paint it, I think 100%, because I can always pull this back. And let's make sure I'm painting with white paint. I'm painting with black paint now, so I'm going to type the X key and just make sure. Oh, let's go to the opacity of 100%, so let's type 0. That gets us to 100%. And now let's just paint this in here. And it just adds a little bit of texture to the barn, which I thought looks pretty cool on that roof too. Kind of nice. And if that's too strong, we can remedy that by just pulling back the opacity a little bit. And maybe, let me see what happens if I change the blend mode to luminosity. Yeah, if I change the blend mode to luminosity, I'll get rid of the alteration of the color. Okay, so here it is now. You see that little bit of coloring in there. First off, let's pull the opacity back a little bit. Now, I'm going to leave it up, but let's take the blend mode and change it to luminosity, and that'll get rid of the color shift in there. And I think that looks nice. Now, this is just affecting the building. So here's the before and after. So I think it looks nice. Now, I may still want to pull this back off a little bit. Just add a little bit of whimsy in here. I think that's a good word. I really think that looks nice. We just have one more step to go, and that's a little bit of dodging and burning, and we're done. I'm just going to use my Tony Kuiper dodging and burning actions because it's just quicker. So I'm going to click on this little action right here. See the little dodge tool? Give that a click. That sets me up with a blank layer in the overlay blend mode with the opacity set to 100%. Okay. And I'm going to get my brush I want to, and it also sets me up with white paint, by the way. And I'm going to get my opacity of my brush down to, I'm going to try 20% here. And all I want to do is look for light areas and just paint in little bits of light. Okay, some of these brighter areas up in here. And just play with the light a little bit. Maybe I'm going to go down to 10% now and hit some of these other areas over here. You can go over them several times if you like. Just put some kisses of light. You know, just add some excitement to your image here. Don't go crazy with it, but, you know, I think it's a nice little effect. Maybe I'll throw a little light on some of these guys in here. And just have fun with it. Just play with it. Maybe a little bit back in here. Maybe just throw a little tiny bit of light up here in the hill here. On a couple little areas. And just have fun and just see where you think it might look good. And I might just throw a little bit of light up on these mountains here. Just looking for some highlights on the mountains here. Just give them a little accent. You know, just have some fun. Just look for the highlights. Over here a little bit. Maybe in here, here. Up in here, up in here. Just a little accent of light. Okay, so let's click on our Dodge layer eyeball here. Here's the before and here's the after. I think that looks nice. I'm going to let it go at that, but take your time and have fun with it. And if you overdid it, you could take the opacity and just pull it off and then just build it up slowly. And maybe I'll do that. I'll take it up to about 80%. Here's the before and here's the after. I think that looks nice. Adds a little bit of light across there. Okay, maybe I'll just add a little bit in here. Yeah, just a little bit right in there. Maybe throw a little bit here. Gosh, you're never done, are you? Okay, so now let's do a little burning. So now let's go to this little icon right here. This is for burning. This puts it in soft light blend mode. Again, our dodge was in overlay, and our burn is in soft light, and it gives us black paint. And I'm already at 10%, so let's just paint in some dark areas. Let's add some depth and dimension. Okay, to our image here. Okay, so looking just for dark areas. Alrighty, just right in here, just painting away, having a little bit of fun. I don't think I'll add any dark areas up in here. Maybe on this rock over in here. I'm back to whispering again. You know, anywhere you think a little depth would look nice, add it. Okay, we're just about done with this. Let's click on the eyeball of the burn layer, before and after. Okay, and again, if I think I went too much, I'm going to go to the main opacity or pull it back and just build it up slowly. Again, around 90% here. Yeah, and then I like to group my dodge and burn layers. So I'm gonna, the burn layer is selected, so I'll shift click the dodge layer, and then I'm gonna use my Tony Kuiper action to make a group, and it's right here. Or else I could have right clicked on here on the layer and just added it to a group. But I like to use these actions because it speeds up everything up. And I'll just name this dodge and burn. Now I should have named all my layers, but it's a tutorial, and I normally do name them, but it would just take too long, so I didn't. But I highly recommend that you name your layers. So let's shut the dodge and burn layer off. As you can see, it adds some nice little depth and dimension to the image. And I'm really happy with it. But there is our house out in the mountain area here. So I thought this was a fun little painting. So let's click on the background layer. So let's look at the original. So here's the original. All right, nice image by itself. This is a stock image, by the way. And let me click it again, and here's the after. So I think this turned out really, really nice. So hopefully this video has taught you some nice little tips and tricks, and experiment and play around with it. And let me know how you're doing with it. I'd really like hearing from you. Well, I had a lot of fun making this one today. If you enjoyed this video today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. If you're not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and click the bell notification icon. This way, every time I put out a new training video, you'll know about it. Well, I really appreciate each and every one of my viewers and subscribers. You really help me out a lot, and I really appreciate you. I couldn't do this without you. Well, I thank you all for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I'll see each and every one of you right here next time.